Thank you very much for this inspiring panel, yet another panel on the strand of digitalization. And it is my pleasure to now announce the next art performance on this stage happening. It is my warmest pleasure to welcome here on stage Sara Nazari, who's a spoken word poet. Sara Nazari, please join me and give her a warm applause. Sara Nazari is an artist and poet based in Stockholm, from Stockholm. She's been performing with poetry and spoken word both in TV, albums and stages around Sweden, but also internationally, including on Musikhallen, Berwaldhallen, and Dramaten. And she broke through together with her spoken word collective, Revolution Poetry, when she was 14 years old. And last but not least, she's also a lawyer. Enjoy the performance.
If they ever wonder if my mother is proud of me and my brother, say that her hands became bloody and that she dyes her hair once every 2 weeks to cover the gray hairs. Say that she took me to my dance classes through snowstorms and sat with my brother at 5 in the morning before his exams. Say that her pride is what raised us. She herself answers, well, what would otherwise have become of them after all my hands have suffered? And if they ask for me, say that I will always be there, but can promise to answer the phone, that I want to help the world, but can only find to help myself. And if they wonder why I'm so deep, say that life showed me death so early on that I had to make sense of the injustices, discussing with my friends in the yard about why my father disappeared and hers left. Say that children may be innocent but not stupid, that children understand void long before they can describe it in words. And if they ask about my home, say that it's beautiful and that people don't have more rooms that they can sleep in, and that food is shared between all, and that social services have always been a threat but that no one has been afraid, and that misery creates characters who just don't get the chance, and that money is sometimes so tempting because it is a way out. But dirty money doesn't buy apartments, only clothes, and clothes show. And that's the most important thing amongst those who don't have much, that it looks like we have something, so we wear our money. Say that philosophy has never been discussed so deeply, that music has not been played so loudly in cars, and that one's friends from afar becomes family. Say that the misery may smell like sewage, but that the water is clean. And that if people really had choices, they wouldn't have chosen this for their children. Say that our parents were the children of revolution, that they survived fleeing their home countries and wars to learn Swedish at SFI among lingonberry jam and porridge with milk, that their children grew up to Emil i Lönneberga and Pippi Longstocking, that Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs was the shit in their new homes, now across countries and borders with a letter a month and a call now and then. Don't think that fleeing your home is easy and that immigration has been easy for those who immigrated. And if they ask about how he died, say that it took his life. Scream it out loud so everyone hears, so he is heard. Hear those who scream around you. Make them feel seen. Don't see it as a way of seeking attention. Understand that attention is not sought if it's given. Give them a question to then get an answer. I do not understand why people have become so blind towards other people and other lives, that they do not understand that power is given through opportunities, and the opportunities cannot be taken if they are not given, if they are not seen, and that you don't know what to choose when you're not used to choices. Understand this. Give the children choices early on so they learn to choose the way many of us never did. And if they finally ask about me, say that in my features lies generations of men and women. My hands represent my mother, my grandmother, and my grandmother's mother, who harvested land, who nurtured in war, who went to war, who survived the neighbor's bullets, who could have been hit but didn't, who stood by their families in order to dare to break free for a greater purpose, who believed, who were fearless because they were young. So thank for the youth who survived without counting on life. So every day after that became a gift, but they learned to not take time for granted. Through all the hardships and all the struggles, the skin thickens and becomes equally smooth as dented. It becomes absolutely perfect and damaged. I might say that I'm tired of fighting, that I want to float, but that's only because I'm an outcome of the survivors, so I get to live and take time for granted, because that was the goal anyway, wasn't it? To make the lives of the next generation just a little bit better. But did it become so much better? There is great light in fire, but the fire can also burn you. Are we fighting for the world? Are we fighting for the children? Are we fighting for the rights of women? Are we fighting for the minorities? Are we fighting for humanity? Or have we learned to fight for ourselves? Thank you.
Sara, thank you so very, very, very much for this moving performance and for giving me goosebumps. You come from the Revolutionary Poetry Collective, and it makes me wonder, how does the revolutionary, and to frame it differently, maybe also just the transformative potential of poetry resonate with you?
I think that poetry speaks to our hearts, and it speaks outside of statistics and logic, and it directly speaks to us. So I think that it's a great way for the youth and for people through all the centuries to influence other people. If it's about politics, if it's about love, it speaks to our most extreme feelings. So I think it's a great way to influence people for change.
Yeah, you were just mentioning the youth and how they can speak up for their causes, but I feel there's also a really strong empowering moment in there. We heard that you started off very, very young as a 14-year-old, breaking through with your words. So what would you say about empowering through poetry, through spoken word, especially when it comes to young people?
I think that it made me feel like I had a voice, and that my thoughts were important, and that I mattered. And that's also something when I've held workshops for young people, they suddenly understand that, okay, so what I'm saying, this grown-up is finally listening to me. And it kind of creates bonds, and it makes us feel like, get a sense of belonging. So I definitely think that it empowered me. I've seen other teenagers and youth members be very empowered by poetry. So I think it's a great way.
Thank you very much. Maybe one last question about spoken word, because it's a very particular form of poetry and it appeals to an audience. It really has a drive, a cause, an urgency. What can you share about slam poetry and spoken word?
Slam poetry is the competition. So, and spoken word is the art form. So it's poetry and then we perform it. So many people think that sometimes we have speeches, but it's not speeches. It's actually it's poetry with a bit of a twist and a dance, and your own identity as a poet can evolve through spoken word. So it's the performance part of poetry, I would say.
Thank you very much. Thank you
so
for
much.
letting us in on your art form and sharing with us this transformative moment. Give another warm applause to Sara Nazari. And without further ado, I am happy to announce the upcoming lunch break for us all to go into the closing panels in the afternoon. Have a good rest and see you in a minute.